Hare Krishna, dear devotees. There was some technical difficulty, so we'll continue with the pastime of Dhruva Mahārāja. So again, we had just started this pastime, so we'll continue from there. We are covering SRIMADBHAGAVATAM, Canto 4, Chapter 8. The title of the chapter is Dhruva Mahārāja Leaves Home to the Forest. And so here, Bhatya Muni is very quickly, he wants to describe the pastime of Dhruva Mahārāja. So Mahatma Vidur is listening, and he is revealing this pastime, and he's very anxious because we all love to hear about Dhruva Mahārāja's pastime. So after discussing Daksha's sacrifice, he comes to the point where he's describing this pastime. And he's saying that Swambhuva Manu had two sons, Priyavrata and Uttanpada. And Uttanpada had two wives, Suruchi and Suniti. Suruchi was more beautiful externally, where his Uttanpada had more interest in her. She was his favorite because she was very attractive looking, very beautiful. While Suniti, Niti means behavior, right? How one conducts themselves. So Suniti she had inner beauty, not so visible from the outside. And in this material world, it's said that the beauty is skin deep. So Uttanpada was very much attached to and attracted by Suruchi. And so sometimes people, they have a way of doing things which is very illogical, it appears, because if someone is very nicely natured, you should be regarding that person high, but he would completely neglect Suniti. And Suniti had a son known as Dhruva. And Suruchi had a son named Uttam. So now Uttam, Dhruva means one who is fixed, one who is determined, one who has taken I'm going to do this, so that he does that. While Uttam is the best. Now this Uttam, the best, is from the eyes of Suruchi, right? And so Suruchi is thinking that her son, because she is favorite of the king, he loves her so much, whatever she will ask, he will do that. And so she is thinking that my son is the best candidate to be the next king after my husband, King Uttanpada. So that's why Uttam is very appropriate from that perspective. So both mothers know their sons, and the sons have been named accordingly. And here, in this particular pastime, sometimes people ask, how could it be? Even, such reasoning comes up. So how can one rationalize different things? We understand that rational lies, right? Sometimes people present logically, which is false, as true through rationalization. And this reminds me of a very interesting incident, a story between Akbar Badshah and his one of his ratna, one of his jewel known as Birbal. Birbal was very clever. So Akbar and Birbal, they were just walking, taking a stroll in the garden. And at that time, Birbal had one bad habit. What? That he would take tobacco, tobacco. He would chew tobacco. And Akbar did not like this habit. So he, saw that there was some tobacco leaves at the end, of the garden. And there was a donkey, an ass, who was smelling but not taking that tobacco. So Akbar, he said to Birbal, see, tobacco is so bad that even an ass does not take it. Right? Ass is like such a dull animal. Now Birbal, he rationalized what he heard as, my dear, Majesty, my dear Akbar Badshah, Tamaku is so that only asses don't take it. So he twisted the words by saying that, he is glorifying tobacco, that only asses don't take it, because Birbal takes it and Akbar doesn't. So sometimes people have this tendency of rationalizing things, which is falsity, right? Which is coming as wife of, we just covered in the previous class, adharma. So this tendency to compare things is on the material platform. And the absolute platform, a devotee thinks absolutely and does things which are favorable to Lord Shri Krishna in his devotional service or her devotional service. So again, one is engaged in one's devotional service to please Lord Shri Krishna and accepts everything that is in favor and rejects everything that is unfavorable to one's devotional service. So here, Suniti's son Dhruva was once playing, and he saw that King Uttanpad, he has Uttam on his lap, right? Suruchi's son Uttam was on King Uttanpad's lap, and King Uttanpad was patting Uttam. So at that time, Suruchi was present, and he wanted to impress upon her that, see, I'm taking care of your son, I'm taking care of our son, because King Uttanpad, he is the father of Dhruva as well as Uttam. But he was rejecting, he was neglecting Dhruva, and he was focusing on, pleasing his wife by showering his love on Uttam, by patting him, by cajoling him, by, showering his affection towards Uttam. Because whenever he saw Uttam, he could see reflection of his wife Suruchi, and she was his favorite. Whenever he saw Dhruva Mahārāja, he saw reflection of his mother Suniti in Dhruva Mahārāja, and since she was not his favorite, he would not give much importance to Dhruva. So in this way, as he was, patting his son Uttam, Dhruva Mahārāja saw, Uttam is on. She said, he is trying to become equal to my son. I am the favorite wife of the king. And how can Dhruv, who's not born of my womb, who's born of this other queen, right, my co-wife Suniti, how could he claim equality with my son? So this is pride. And then because there is a comparison, relativity, she chastised Dhruva Mahārāja because of her envious nature. So envy. This is also sometimes referred to as himsa, because sometimes in envy people speak such harsh words. They are more harmful, they are more injurious than any weapons. So she heavily rebuked Dhruva Mahārāja. In her harsh words, she said that if you ever desire to rise to the throne, because King Uttanpad sitting on the throne and sitting on his lap is like, claiming to be the next heir, even if you desire, then you have to give up this body, give up your life, pray to the Supreme Personality of Godhead that you be born of my womb. And she says that you should immediately engage in severe austerities and satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And why should you satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead? She is saying that you have to get the blessing from the Supreme Personality of Godhead that you be born from my womb. Only when you are born from my womb will you be able to climb yourself, as to be the throne, to be on the throne. So again, you can have such a kingdom. So now these words, right, they struck Dhruva Mahārāja in his heart very grievously. So just like when somebody strikes with a stick a snake, and the snake breathes very heavily, Dhruva Mahārāja, he, having been struck by the strong words of his stepmother Suruchi, he began to breathe very heavily. So this is where we see the Kshatriya, behavior of a young boy, just 5-year-old Dhruva Mahārāja. He was breathing very heavily in anger, being struck very much in his heart. And so he looked at his father. But what does he see? That his father is silent. To his surprise, he would have thought that my father would chastise Suruchi, right? King Uttanpad should chastise, the stepmother Suruchi. But Uttanpad is silent. He is not protesting at all. He is not saying, no, he is also my son, let him sit. So Dhruva Mahārāja is surprised that she is giving more value to her womb than the king himself. She is saying that, so he could understand that, yes, my father is not protesting on my behalf. And sometimes people say, how could that be? Everyone has affection to their, children equally. Well, when it comes the time, one who is more attracted because of whatever behavior, one tends to give more attention to that son or daughter than towards one, the attraction is less. So again, that relativity only exists in this material world. Because when we see Lord as the absolute truth, whether he chastises one or whether he blesses one, both are benefited. So that's on the absolute transcendental platform when we are dealing, which doesn't mean that we should be, not behaving properly. We should still seek to engage in devotional service to please the Lord, because that way susukham kartum avaya, we can be happily performing our devotional service, and quickly we can come to the right platform to be in our pure dharma, proper dharma. So dharma is one's nature, right? Dharma of sugar is it is sweet. Dharma of namak, salt, is that it is salty, right? Namkeen. Similarly, what is the dharma of soul? Jivera Sarup Hoya Krishna Das. So our eternal dharma is that we are eternal servant of Lord Shri Krishna. So we have to engage in devotional service, then only we can be happy in this life. Yet at the same time, we have to combine our Swarup with, what is our prescribed duty in alignment with our eternal duty. So our prescribed duty is based on the three modes of material nature and what their influence is on us. So Kshatriyas are in this mode of passion, and Dhruva Mahārāja being struck, like Arjun was a Kshatriya. So he wanted to leave the battlefield in the beginning, the first chapter, as he is describing, and he is ready to take to begging or giving up. But Lord Krishna says, no, you have to follow your dharma, your surup, your prescribed duty. So when prescribed duty are aligned with our eternal duty, Sanatana Dharma, then one can seek perfection. Lord Krishna says, Mamusmaran Yuddhacha, remembering me, Arjun, stand up and fight. So, we have to engage in devotional service based on our different propensities. And who can help us? That's why we seek direction from the spiritual masters. Why do we say masters? Because we have our spiritual master, and there are three different kinds of spiritual masters, right? One who shows us the path to Krishna consciousness, who encourages us in the early stages to show that, okay, the way to engage in devotional service is through the chanting of the holy name. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Then they are instructing spiritual masters. We hear Shiksha Gurus, right? So they give us Shiksha, they give us knowledge. So that way we become enlightened, we become more focused on devotional service. So there can be many Shiksha Gurus, but there can only be one Diksha Guru. Diksha Guru are the initiating spiritual masters. So, and in the lineage and the disciplic succession, we are looking at the various acharyas of acharyas, and we are considering ourselves dasanu das, servant of the servant of the servant of the servant. So this way we can understand that we need instructions, we need discipline, and we have to be ready to be disciplined. Then when we are ready to be disciplined, then we are perfectly ready to become disciple, and we should aspire for a spiritual master to give us initiation so that we can progress on our path, on our spiritual journey faster. Now, it's very interesting that it reminds me of another story. Once there was a great yogi, he was in meditation, and one day when his meditation broke, he saw that a young man was standing in front of him. And so he said, what do you want? The young man said, well, I want to become your disciple. So now the yogi said, why do you want to become my disciple? So the young man thought for a moment, and he said, because I think I want to know God. So the yogi immediately caught hold of him by his neck, pulled him to the river and put his head under water. And this man was trying to breathe. He was in a shocked state. And he was throwing his hands around, his legs around, and just before his life here was going to get out of his body, the yogi pulled him out of the water. He said, what did you want at that moment when you were under the water most? He said, air, I wanted air. The man, he is giving you the right answer. He's like, yes, I wanted some air to breathe. I was not able to breathe underwater. So he said, when you want God like you wanted air, then come to me and I'll make you my disciple. So we should be looking for our spiritual master with that earnest, with that determination, with that great zeal, with great enthusiasm, that we want to know God, we want to serve God. Servant of God is not a small thing. It is something that we should be crying out with our life and soul, calling out to our spiritual master, please give me this knowledge, give me the way that I can serve God, I can please God. And that's why when our spiritual master says and shows us the path, then we follow that path with our heart and soul. So here, Dhruva Mahārāja, he has not met his spiritual master yet. So again, we will be coming to that. So again, Dhruva Mahārāja, he is surprised that his father is silent. And he is like he's a small child. He is hurt in his heart by his stepmother's harsh words and his father not defending him, not correcting her. And sometimes people say that how could it be so, right? And again, reminding me of Akbar Birbal's story, where Akbar, and Birbal, they were sometimes incognito, wearing common people's clothes. They would wander into the kingdom to find out. And then one strange thing, what Akbar sees, and as they were wandering around the kingdom to see if everything is working on very nicely, that there was a short fat lady. She called her husband like a big wrestler, kind of gigantic, and she called him and she shouted at him and then she slapped him, and the man did not do anything. Akbar was shocked, he was disturbed. So when they returned to the palace, he said, how could it be, Birbal, that such a big gigantic man, he was slapped by his wife? She was rebuking him and he didn't say anything. So Birbal says, what can we say, my dear Lord, when men are, they follow what their wives say. They are handpicked. So Akbar says, no, it cannot be true. Well, it is so, Birbal said. So Akbar, he said, okay, call all the men in the kingdom and get them, gathered on the ground. So yes, all the men in the kingdom, they were called in the ground. And then Akbar says, they are gathered onto the right side. And he says, whoever, right, does not follow your wife, whoever follows your wife, listens to your wife and follows her, move to the left, so move to the other side. Everyone but one person moved to the other side. Now Akbar looked at Birbal, like, see, there is one man who does not listen to his wife. So Birbal became inquisitive. He said, well, why did you not move? The man says, actually, my wife has told me to stay away from crowd. So here we learn that in this material world, where the beauty is skin deep, women, they have great power on such men who are, seeking sense gratification. So husband, people become husband, they take to grihastha life because they want to engage in dharma, artha, kama, moksha, right? The four goals of this life. So they are looking for, because of the attraction, they are in this particular state. However, at the same time, when someone is seeking sense gratification, they are not grihasthas, they are griha medhis. They are following those demoniac 7 generations that we talked about in the previous session, the earlier session. So, grihasthas are ones who are engaged in devotional service, engaged in economic development, right? So that they can get the remuneration. And yes, while they take care of their family, they also take care of the other ashrams, because in brahmacharya there is no income earning happening. In vanaprastha, one takes to the forest life, one is living a retired life, one is not earning anything. And in sannyas ashram, again one is not earning anything. Only in grihastha ashram is one earning something. So the person in grihastha ashram is responsible for all other 3 ashrams as well, not just his own ashram. And when one neglects the other ashrams, then he becomes grahamedhi. So that is also very important to understand. That's why Srila Rupa Goswami, Srila Sanatana Goswami, they set the example, and Srila Prabhupada in his purport says that a grihastha should be keeping 50% of the income for the charitable purposes, to spread Krishna consciousness. And the remaining 50% is what they should use to support the family, the education life of the children, and to sustain the family, and not engage in too much sense gratification. Here we see that the king Uttanpad was a hand-packed husband, and he was so much hand-packed that he did not object to Suruchi, who was saying that her womb is greater than even King Uttanpad. Becoming a son of King Uttanpad is not that great a deal, but it's better that Dhruva be born. First of all, he has to perform great austerities to satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Then he should be asking from Supreme Personality of Godhead the boon that he be born as from the womb of Suruchi, his stepmother, and only then he can become an heir to the throne. So Dhruva Maharaj, hearing this, he was in anger, and the tears was coming out heavily, and he was breathing very heavily. And so he left the palace and directly went to his mother. So this is where what happens, right? A child, when he is attacked by others, immediately takes shelter of the mother. So again, he immediately went to his mother, and when Suniti, she saw Dhruva Maharaj breathing heavily, tears in his eyes, in anger, and as if tormented, like it's burning, she immediately picked him up and made him sit on her lap. And she was inquiring. So at that time, the other members who were assembled, who had seen this incident, narrated to her what had happened. That how Suruchi had used very harsh words to chastise Dhruva Maharaj from sitting on his father's lap. And so when she heard, she also was breathing heavily, and she was also very angry, and the tears were coming from her eyes, and she was burning like a leaf burns in a forest fire. So that way all her, the glow of her face, it diminished. She became morose, hearing this, that my husband, King Uttanpa, did not say anything. And so at that time, it is very important to hear the amazing instructions she gave to Dhruva Maharaj, right? So when Dhruva Maharaj, he reached his mother, his lips were trembling with anger, right? He was crying very grievously, and in that state, when King Suniti was trying to find a remedy, she could not find any remedy. And so she said to her son, right? What did she say? First is she said, my dear son, so making him understand that he is very dear to her. Don't wish for anything inauspicious for others. So that is the first instruction she is giving Suniti. Her conduct she is showing by her instruction. So she is the Acharya. Mothers are the first gurus, because they have this responsibility to show by their example, set the example for the children to follow. So that's why mothers, they are the first guru. So it's very interesting, today's times, people are thinking, should the women be guru or not? While we see there is a whole sampradaya, Shri Sampradaya, starting from goddess of fortune, Shri Devi. So again, that's where we see that there is a whole sampradaya started by a lady, goddess of fortune. And here, Suniti, by her example as an Acharya, is showing Dhruva Maharaj, giving him the instruction that never think of anything inauspicious for others. And anyone who inflicts pains upon others suffers oneself, right, for that pain, from that pain. So it is like when somebody sets fires to others' house, actually the fire only burns them. So this is a very important instruction. Now sometimes people say, well, maybe she is making a prophecy. Or is it a fact? So in reality, as Acharyas reveal, that this is, yes, it appears as a prophecy as the series of events come by, but in reality it is a fact. And Srila Prabhupada used to give many such examples. He would say, yes, there are various sayings, right? Early to bed, early to rise makes a man healthy, wealthy and wise. It's a fact. So if you go early to bed and you get up early with the mind focus on, engaging in devotional service, then of course you become healthy. You have good health because you are, following your biological cycle, and you are able to engage in exercises and other ways to take care of the body, and you become wealthy. So material wealth is there, today is here, gone tomorrow, but the spiritual wealth, you can endow yourself with a lot of spiritual wealth, and you become wise because Cheto Darpanam Ajaram, cleansing of heart happens when we chant the holy name. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So that is a fact, right? Similarly, as you sow, so shall you reap. So whatever you have sown, that is what will fructify. If you try to plant, if you try to sow a seed of mango, you don't expect oranges, because what will come out will be a mango tree, and you'll get mangoes from there. So if you are sowing and causing a thorny plant to come up, you will see thorns. So again, what goes around comes around. That's a fact. Now the series of events only reveal that fact around. So she's actually giving us the instruction through this story. We learn that we should never think of any harm to others, and never think of any inauspiciousness for others, because that is a way of inviting inauspiciousness in our life. So that is a very important lesson I want to share, that we should all be very careful about what we think, and we should always be thinking of others' welfare, others' benefit. And that's one of the characteristics, as Acharyas reveal, is of a Vaishnava. He's par dukkha dukhi. He becomes sad when he sees others sad. And he's par sukha sukhi. When he is seeing others happy, then they become happy. The Vaishnavas become happy. So, again, we don't want to even commit Vaishnava aprad. And then, of course, with the chanting of holy name, there are nama aprads. With offending a Vaishnava, those offenses are known as mad elephant disease. And so, we don't want to commit any offenses. We want to avoid all aparads. For that, we have to remove our avidya, ignorance. And we want to, again, have to get rid of the anarthas. And the 7 generations of demons helps us get rid of those anarthas as well. And of course, bhajan kriya anartha nivrati. So again, when we engage in devotional service, the cleansing of heart happens, and all the anarthas are the ones that are the impurities that are washed off from our heart. So here she is actually now revealing to Dhruva Mahārāja something very amazing. She is agreeing to what Suruchi said. She is saying that, my dear boy, whatever has been spoken by Suruchi is that so. She is actually revealing to Dhruva Mahārāja that, yes, but what Suruchi has said, you do have to take to the great austerity and satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So that is where she is encouraging Dhruva Mahārāja that, yes, that's the right direction she has shown you. And Chanakya Pandit, he in his instruction in Niti Shastri, he says that an intelligent man collects gold even from garbage. So this is where the wealth of knowledge is coming from a person who is not so pure, but that wealth of knowledge should not be neglected. So she is encouraging him to take to devotional service. And she is saying that, yes, if you want kingdom, if you want to be a ruler, then you should take to devotional service and set, very much in mode of passion. And so one of the effect is that one can become very cunning. One can because the greed is there. If one becomes greedy, then they can find the wrong ways. By hook or crook, they try to snatch away others' property. And she understands that Uttama is, King Uttanpad, he is loving him more, so he seems to be taking onto the throne, and there may be a feeling of envy that may arise in the heart of Dhruva Mahārāja. So she immediately tells him that, give up your envious attitudes toward Uttam. So this is also very important. We should never be envious towards any living entity. And Srila Narottam Das Thakur describes that all these other bad qualities, anarthas, kam, krodh, lobh, moh, mad, matsara, of these, except for matsara, envy, others can be used in devotional service to show towards people who are attacking the devotees. But envy cannot even be used in any manner. So again, we should never be envious of anyone. And immediately, she is saying to Dhruva Mahārāja that follow the instructions of your stepmother. And then she gives various examples. She gives examples of Lord Brahma. She says that Lord Brahma performed great austerities. So Lord Brahma, when he was born, he did not know his cause. So he heard the word tapa, austerity. So he engaged immediately, he went into meditation, he performed great austerities and satisfied the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And so he was endowed with this ability to create. And so one of the Gunavatas is, the personification of the mode of passion. So Lord Brahma is regarded very highly because of his position to be able to create things in the mode of passion, right? And then she says that his son, Swayambhuva Manu, he performed various kind of sacrifices. So that is yajna, right? He performed various kind of sacrifices and gave a lot of charity, right? Dan. So that's how he was able to become the administrator of the universe. And he became so glorious. So again, all these, and both the personalities are Mahajanas, right? Swayambhur Narado Shambhu Kumaro Kapilo Manuho Prahalado Janako Bhishma Bali Vaya Sakirvayam. So of the 12 Mahajanas, that who is listing these Mahajanas? Yamraj, the Lord of Death. He is listing this Mahajana. Swayambhur Narado Shambhu. He is saying Lord Brahma, Devashi Narad, Shambhu, Lord Shiva. Kumaro Kapilo Manu, the Chatur Kumar, Sanak Sanatan, Sanandana and Sanat Kumar, and Kapil Dev, again incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, son of Devahuti and Kashyapa Muni, Kardama Muni, sorry. And Manu, here Manu is Swayambhuva Manu. In one day of Brahma, there are 14 Manus. So Swayambhuva Manu is whose pastime, whose progeny is being discussed here. So he is also one of the Mahajanas. She said that he performed great yagyas, sacrifices, and then he gave a lot of charity, dhan. So he was able to, become the administrator of the universe. And these are two Mahajanas she is giving reference. And as she is continuing to describe, she is saying that even Lord Brahma seeks favor from the goddess of fortune. But goddess of fortune is ever ready with a lotus in her hand to render loving devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So now it's not just yagya, dan and tap. Lord Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita that anyone who is engaged, even the pure souls purify themselves by engaging in sacrifice, austerity and charity. So these three things should never be given up. Yet at the same time, anukulena Krishna, as Lord Krishna, in favor of Lord Krishna as he desires, they should be conducted. So here, goddess of fortune has been identified, who is ever ready to engage in devotional service of the Supreme Lord, to serve his lotus feet, even though Lord Brahma is looking for her favor, to please goddess of fortune. Yet at the same time, she is focused on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So when she gives these examples, Dhruva Mahārāja, he has firm determination, as his name says. Right? He is fixed in his determination that he is going to satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And he walks out and immediately goes to the jungle, because Suniti says that Lord is in the forest. So you should immediately take to satisfy. And he is going to the jungle and he is asking various animals, have you seen the Supreme Personality of Godhead? Have you seen the Supreme Personality of Godhead? So here, hearing this, that Dhruva Mahārāja, who is a 5-year-old boy, he is so much hurt by the words of his stepmother that he has gone to the forest to seek the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Is very impressive. And with Vishi Narad, he hears, the Sri Narad hears about, Dhruva Mahārāja. He immediately goes. And when he goes there, understanding the activities that he is calling out to the animals, if they have seen the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he approached Dhruv and he, touching his head, right, in the form of blessing, he is now glorifying. He is saying, how wondrous are the powerful Kshatriyas. They cannot tolerate even a slight infringement upon their prestige. Just imagine. This boy is only a small child, yet unbearable for him. So he is, glorifying Dhruva Mahārāja that Kshatriyas in the mode of passion, they don't accept any insult, they don't tolerate any insult. And so even though his mother, his stepmother, has said harsh words, he is out here trying to satisfy his determined to get higher, kingdom, even greater than his great-grandfather, Lord Brahma. And so fixed he is in engaging in devotional service. And now he is addressing Dhruva Mahārāja. So when, we see advanced Vaishnavas, we should become very joyful. So here, Dhruva Mahārāja, he knows who Devashi Narad is. He reveals that. He is saying to, he knows that, Devashi Narad is son of Lord Brahma from that perspective. And he is always, wandering, benefiting the whole universe by playing on his veena and singing Narayan, Narayan. So here Devashi Narad says to Dhruva Mahārāja, well, you are just a small child, 5-year-old boy. You should not take your stepmother's words very seriously. You should just be engaged in sports and frivolities, because that's what kids do of your age. Right? And he doesn't see any change in Dhruva's behavior. He is saying that he is still determined. And then he is saying to Dhruva Mahārāja, another feature of this illusory energy, this Maya, this material energy, is that every living entity is controlled by their previous activities, right? So whatever, if you have performed pious activities, you will have reactions which will make you happy. If you have performed impious activities or sinful activities, then they will cause you grief or distress. So there are different varieties of life for enjoying and suffering. What is happening seems like you got rebuked by your mother. It's just a reaction to your past action. So accept it that way. And even though he doesn't see Dhruva Mahārāja accepting this, from his external symptoms, he's saying that one who is intelligent, he accept that process and be satisfied with whatever comes, favorable or unfavorable. So one should be, at that higher platform, neglecting the favorable and unfavorable things by his supreme will, because everything is happening by God's will. Sometimes, this is where things happen, that, we are in a comfort zone. I give you the example of, the old couple who were in their comfort zone, being, carrying out day in, day out with the help of an old cow. But by following the monk's instructions, they were able to go beyond and see other possibilities coming out of their comfort zone. Here, Devashi Narada is saying that one should accept whatever happens in life, whether it's favorable or unfavorable, understanding that everything is happening by the supreme will. Yet he doesn't see any change in Dhruva Mahārāja. And then he gives another, says, but in my opinion, so now he is giving, that even if you want to take to devotional service, it's not very simple, because it's not like at that time the devotional service was, to get attained. Kriteta dathayate vishrum tretayam yajato make dwapare parichayam kalauta dhari kirtanat. So in the Krita Yuga, in the Satyuga, Dhyayate Vishnu, one can meditate on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, perform great austerities, and can attain perfection. And Tretayam Yajatomake, in Treta Yuga, which is the next Yuga, one can, again the austerity aspect is not there, so the cleanliness is there, so again one can perform yajna, fire sacrifices, and making an offering oblations in the fire sacrifice, as we saw in the sacrifice of Daksha, one can attain perfection. And Dwapare Parichayam, in Dwapar Yuga, by temple worship, by going on pilgrimage, by visiting Tirthasthan, one can attain perfection. Just like Mahatma Vidur in Dwapar Yuga was going from pilgrimage to pilgrimage, and he was hearing instructions from Maitreya Muni. So again, that is the way. When we go to a pilgrimage, we should not just take bath in the river and go and worship the deities. We should hear from the Vaishnavas about the name, form, activities, pastimes of the Supreme Lord. Krishna Katha. That is the main purpose of going, from pilgrimage to pilgrimage, from dham to dham. And Kalauta Dhari Kirtana. In Kali age, one can attain perfection by just taking to Sankirtan Yajna, chanting of the holy names, congregational chanting of the holy names. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So, he is saying that many mystic yogis, so this is a time of Satyuga, as is evident, that Dhruva Mahārāja is trying to perform austerities. He is saying that many mystic yogis, they have taken to this austerities, and for many, many lives they continue to go, but they have not attained perfection. Right? So he is saying it's not very easy to perform austerities. So again, sometimes people say, yes, we will do dhyan, we will engage in Ashtanga Yoga system. They don't understand that even in Ashtanga Yoga system, it takes many, many births. Even the Gyan Yogis who are in knowledge, Bahunam Janmanam Ante Gyanvam Prapadyante. After many births, a person in perfect knowledge understands that Vasudeva Sarvamiti, that Lord Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is all in all. Yes. So, here we hear that, by the mercy of, then he is saying that you need the mercy of the Lord. And you are a small child, maybe when you grow up, you will be able to take to devotional service. At that time, you will be strong enough and you will be able to get successful in your attempt. So here, one should, and he is further again repeating his instruction that one should be satisfied in any condition of life, whether it's distress or whether, it's happiness, and accepting it as supreme will. At the same time, he's also giving the instruction that when one sees an advanced devotee, one should be very pleased, looking for to serve those devotees. That is called Vaishnava Seva. One who is seeing someone who is less advanced than oneself, then they should be compassionate towards them. That is Jiva Daya. And then when we see someone who is on an equal level, then they should be very friendly with them, right? Spiritually on the same platform. So that is where they should engage in Krishna Katha, Namaruchi. So this Vaishnava Seva, Jiva Daya, Namaruchi, these are the three, essential dharmas for the current age. So again, here in this particular chapter, Devashi Narad revealed that. And then Dhruva Mahārāja says, what you have said is right, but for one who is Brahman, right, who is in the mode of goodness. I'm a Kshatriya, and I have this determination that I want to attain perfection by getting a greater kingdom than my great-grandfather, Lord Brahma. So if you can help me, please help me. Otherwise, forgive me because I am so impudent that I cannot take your instructions. Your instructions do not enter my heart. Dhruva Mahārāja is saying this. And so, he is identifying, so this is a test where he has passed the test of Devashi Narad, because Devashi Narad was thinking, is he just angry or making a show of it? No, he understands that Dhruva is strong in his determination, is fixed in his determination. So he gives the instruction saying that your mother Suniti has given you the right instruction. Take to devotional service to satisfy and please the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And so absorb yourself in devotional service. Now he lays down the process of devotional service as per Panchratrika Vidhi. And he's saying that whoever engages in devotional service completely satisfies the four principles. What are these principles? Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. Religiosity, economic development, sense gratification, and at the end, liberation. One is able to get the fruits of all. And that's the fulfillment. So he says that you should go to Madhuvan on the bank of Yamuna, and there you can be near the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and you should take bath 3 times a day, make a deity of the Lord, worship the deity, and engage in your austerity. So, and then he gives this mantra to Dhruva Mahārāja. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. The 16-syllable mantra he says, when you engage, meditating on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, on the heart, the lotus of your heart, meditate on the form of the Lord. And he describes the form of the Lord in his Chaturbhuja form, that his smile is so pleasing, he's got lotus eyes, Shivatsa, the white curly hair on his chest is where Goddess of Fortune resides. He's wearing Kaustubha, he's holding, Gada Chakra Padma Shankha, the conch, the wheel, the Kondubaki Gada, the club, and lotus flower. And how beautiful his form is, every part of his body is perfectly carved and so forth, perfectly shaped. And he's saying that after sitting on your seat, engaging in 3 kinds of breathing exercises. So again, this is where we hear about pranayama, asana, pratyahara. So this is a Ashtanga Yoga system which has been identified, but to meditate on the Supreme Personality of Godhead on the lotus of the heart. Now, he's telling Dhruva Mahārāja that, my dear Dhruva, Lord awards one based on, one's surrender. And Lord Krishna reveals in the 4th chapter in Bhagavad Gita, Ye yatha mam prapadyante tam tathaiva bhajamyaham mama vartamano vartante manusha path sarvasha. So again, Lord Krishna is saying, I reward one according to their surrender, and everyone follows my path. So one, if very serious for liberation, must stick to this transcendental loving service, devotion service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And then, after giving the instruction, when he sees Dhruva Mahārāja going to Madhuvan, he goes and sees King Uttanpada, and there King Uttanpada is lamenting that how henpecked husband I am, that my son, he wanted to climb on my lap, and I, did not protest and let my wife rebuke him so harshly, and he is feeling so sorry that he is not even engaged in his regular duties, because he is also, heart struck with seeing that his son was so much hurt by the words of his favorite wife Suruchi that he left home and has gone to the jungle, and he was fearing that the fox and jackals could eat up his body, could attack him. He's just a 5-year-old child, what can he do? So at that time Devashi Narad gives him assurance that do not worry, your son Dhruva Mahārāja is engaged in Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he is going to glorify your name So hearing this, King Uttanpad is, pleased to hear this message of good fortune of Dhruva Maharaj from Devashi Narad, that he has taken shelter of Devashi Narad and is following his instruction, and his mother Suniti also gave him the right instructions. So King Uttanpad is stabilized. Now in the very first month, Dhruva Maharaj, he only ate fruits and berries on every third day. So again, by engaging in devotional service in a month, he came to this level. And this was only to sustain his life heirs, right? To sustain himself. And he progressed in his, devotional service to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In the second month, Dhruva Maharaj ate only every sixth day. And his, what did he eat? Only dry grass and leaves. He didn't even take fruits and berries. And he continued his service. So this is great austerity that we cannot expect people to perform in this Kali age. That's why Sankirtan Yajna, the easiest and the best processes are identified. In the third month, he drank water only every 9 days. So he stopped eating any solid stuff and was sustaining himself just by eating water. And in the fourth month, Dhruva Maharaj, he became complete master of his breathing exercise. And so he inhaled air only on every 12th day. So imagine what kind of austerity, and so fast he is advancing. So he became fixed in his position and he is worshipping the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In the fifth month, Maharaj Dhruv, the son of King Uttanpad, he was controlling his breathing so perfectly that he was able to stand only on one leg, just like a column, right, without moving, and he was concentrating his mind fully on the Parabrahman, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, on the lotus of his heart. So when he was meditating, he was in Samadhi, he became practically one in heaviness with Lord Vishnu. And because he was not breathing, all the holes or the gates of his body were blocked, choked up. The whole universe became choked up. And all the demigods, they found it very hard to breathe. So they immediately approached the Supreme Personality of Godhead asking for solution. And then Lord, he simply smiled, saying, "My dear demigods, do not be perturbed by this. It is due to the severe austerity being performed by the son of King Uttanpad, Dhruva, right? And he is fully absorbed in thoughts of me. He is in Samadhi. And so that's why he has obstructed the universal breathing process. So please return safely to your individual abodes. I will stop this boy, right, from these severe austerities, and you will be saved from this situation." And this is where this chapter ends. So now the Supreme Personality of Godhead is going to see Dhruva Maharaj. We know this, and this particular juncture we understand that Dhruva Maharaj left home with the mood to attain a higher kingdom greater than his great grandfather, Lord Brahma. So he is in the category of Artharthi, right? One of the pious people who is seeking greater fortune, a material fortune. But of course, in the next chapter we will hear that how he is even purified of that contamination, that material contamination, that desire that he had. Hare Krishna. Gantra SRIMADBHAGAVATAM ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srila Bhagavad ki jai, Anant Kori Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai, Nitaya Go Premanande, Hari Hari Bol.